Stagger my day. Work half a day early, and then I take a break. Time zones. I'm blessed. Thank you. How about you?
I would like to call the January meeting of the Archer Planning and Zoning Board to order. It is now 6 o'clock. If you would please rise and face the flag. We will pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Just a reminder, but please use your microphones.
Maybe. If you're nice.
Red's off.
There we go there. Pledge allegiance. As you see, we have all 5 board members present. I declare this a legal quorum. If the board would peruse the minutes of our last meeting, and I will accept a motion to accept or amend them at this time.
Mr. Chair, I move that the minutes be accepted.
I second that, Kosicki.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. That we accept the minutes as printed. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. We will move on to new business, which consists of one issue. Resolution number PZ LPAM 24-01. I will turn this now over to the attorney to read by title only.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is a resolution of the Planning and Zoning Board of the City of Archer, Florida, serving also as the local planning agency of the City of Archer, Florida, recommending to the City Commission of the City of Archer, Florida, approval of ordinance number 05-2024, declaring a temporary moratorium on the accepting and/or processing of applications for industrial uses for a period of 1 year, repealing all resolutions in conflict, providing an effective date.
Thank you.
For purposes of this board, just a reminder that this is a legislative, not a quasi-judicial hearing, so this will be heard just like any other resolution. You'll go through the motion, if a motion is to be had on this resolution, discussion, public comment on the motion, and then you all can deliberate, make your decision.
Okay, we await a motion. Accept or reject.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we reject this resolution number PZLPAM 24-01. Do you want any rationale at this time? We've just said
It's been moved that we reject this resolution. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded.
We have just made our Pledge of Allegiance for liberty and justice for all. And I feel like this resolution is aimed at 2 businesses of industrial. And if I paid $1 million for an industrial site, are you stopping me?
Go ahead.
Thanks.
It's just a little out of order,
I'm trying to
that's
be
all.
calm. It's out of order? Okay, I'll wait, because I won't forget it.
I know.
So who wants
All
to
right,
speak?
them, right?
You all would have your discussion first.
Okay,
then
I
you
was
can
wrong.
have
I
the-
was wrong. Go ahead, Miss Ann.
He just wants to hear it
I'm
again.
sorry.
And I'm glad to say it again. We've just had the Pledge of Allegiance for liberty and justice for all, and I don't feel like this is a just resolution. I think it's aimed at two people, and it makes me very unhappy. My cup runneth over that so many business people in this area wrote letters asking us to reject this resolution, and that's my rationale.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Don?
Yeah, after reviewing this and looking at this, passing this resolution would set the city up for the future. And right now, it's written in the past, and to make City of Archer what we want it to be in the future, I think that we need this moratorium to get our ordinances in line for the future.
I do want to provide just a little bit of context for you all to make sure that you're aware of your options on this. So you can recommend that obviously the city not pass the ordinance. That's one of the things that you can do, which I think is a motion on the table right now. You can recommend with proposed edits. One of the things that has been brought up is just to give you all a sense. The way that the ordinance is written right now and the request from the commission was sort of that it look like no industrial uses, applications, that kind of thing. It's not limited to conditional use permits, which is also another one of the things that we've talked about. So if you all wished, you could say that you wanted to limit it to conditional use permits or any variation therein. You're not stuck with exactly what's written in this resolution right now if you don't like it that way. Or alternatively, you can pass it and recommend it as written. I just wanted to point that out because I know that there's been discussions in the past of, we're okay with certain things in industrial, but we have other concerns regarding maybe some other things in industrial. So you don't have to sort of blanket. The way that this is written is blanket, and you can subtract as needed. So I just wanted to provide you with that.
Thank you.
Linda Kosicki, I have a lot of questions. I need to know why in September they voted on this and now the city commission voted on this and now it's back in our lap. Did we do something else backwards? Why is it coming to us?
So the city commission voted to move forward with a moratorium. It has to be in this form in order to actually pass the moratorium. So it was never passed by the city commission. The city commission voted that we move forward. North Central Florida Regional Planning Council put this together for us, and the first step of it is to bring it to you all. So that's why you're seeing it in this form.
Okay, how legal is this? Are we punishing people? I mean, and I also want to know, after reading all of the emails, there's a lot of confusion here when people are talking about residential, commercial, industrial. Is that what we are addressing? Are we addressing our entire zoning? Or we are just talking about industrial? And are we talking about heavy industrial, light industrial? I mean, there's just too much in here to unpack it with one sentence. I have problems with even the presentation of it. My 2 cents.
I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone has. North Central Florida put this resolution together for you all at the city commission's request. The way that it is worded right now is that there would be a moratorium, which is essentially a temporary pause for a period of time of all applications regarding all industrial properties. This includes site plans, this includes CUPs, this includes everything in industrial only. This does not impact commercial. This does not impact residential in any way. And this is also not a forever. There is a specific schedule that's been laid out by North Central Florida Regional Planning Council. In order to pass this moratorium, you're legally required to have a plan. as far as what you intend to do in the interim that the moratorium is in place, how you plan to amend your code. Because what a moratorium is for is to allow you all a pause on new applications so that you can look at your land development code and put together a plan for what you think appropriate changes are for it so that you don't have to do both at the same time. So what this is right now we have the moratorium that we would pass. Then it would be part of you all's job and the city commission's job to move forward with what do we think are appropriate changes to the land development code as far as industrial use goes.
Linda Kosicki, there was one major question, like how many holes do we have in this industrial zoning? I mean, is it carte blanche? Is it completely wide open?
So that would really be a question for a planner, which is part of what we're looking for right now, looking into right now as part of our part of what this will be is that your city commission will take a look at the code. You all will take a look at the code. Obviously, your citizenry will have an opportunity to take a look at the code. There will be changes that are proposed. We're also working with the county to get services from the county for additional planning recommendations as far as how to shore up your land development code. As far as how many holes are there, I think that that's a question that is really sort of point of view specific. I think some people would believe that there are not any holes in your code and that your code is perfectly appropriate the way that it is. I think others would say that everything should be just thrown out and it should be restarted. And that's really sort of for you all and for the city commission to make a determination of how do you see your city moving forward? What land development regulations do you see your city needing in order to accomplish your goals?
Wasn't this needed years ago?
I think that that is another point of view specific question. I think some people would say yes, and some people would say it's not even needed now.
Well, when I read the plan, it talks about a planner. Who's the planner?
Right now, we're working with North Central Florida Regional Planning Council, and we're working on getting additional assistance from the county.
You have something, Sean?
Yeah, I'm just putting my thoughts together. So basically, this is saying, I mean, people already know the situation that Archer is in at the present moment. And basically what this is telling citizens, the state, the governor, and pretty much anybody who would ever think about investing into this community, that, you know what, just put it on pause for a year while we figure out what we're going to do. Everything should be done by a case-by-case basis anyways. That's why we have a planning and zoning board. That's why we have a city commission. I personally don't see any problems with our planning and zoning the way it's sitting at the moment with things that are brought up at this current time. In the future, there might be something, but that should be a case by case. There's no way to fully fix or amend anything unless you know what you're amending it for. But basically, I think passing this would pretty much put if not the final nail, a few more into the city officer's coffin as it's sitting at the moment. Because we're going into a brand new presidency, a brand new term for the next 4 years. There's going to be a lot of businesses that are starting, are growing, are expanding during this presidential term. And they're not going to wait a year. They're going to move to other communities, other states, other cities that are already right now welcoming them. So I think everything that I have no problem coming up here and doing this every week, every month, as many times as we have to. And we can just do everything on a case by case. We don't need to individually target or rewrite our entire zoning and just to fulfill one need.
Linda Kosicki, how do we know if we don't look at it?
Look at what? It's our planning and zoning is available, but that's what I'm
The
saying.
comprehensive plan.
Yeah, we would get it in order to approve it or deny it and then send it to the commission.
Don't you think we need to look at it?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we would get it in advance.
Okay, I'm puzzled by that, but,
I mean, what's the question?
um,
I mean, we have access to our planning and zoning as it sits now.
well, I remember years ago, people came up and said there was problems. I'm not supposed to be talking to you. That people came up and said that there was problems with our plans, and nothing was done for, I know, the last 3 to 5 years. Are we just gonna shove it under the rug forever, or are we actually gonna do something?
Well, we can address our planning and zoning issues without having to put a pause on any future growth for the next year. We can do it and adapt as we go without stopping anything from happening in Archer for a year, because a year is a long time.
Well, it might seem like a long time to you, but I've been here 34 years. I haven't seen anything industrial besides Maddox. I don't see any screaming industrial people who are knocking at our doors.
But
I really don't.
it's for any industrial properties that are available to be used at all. I mean, basically, this would stop hundreds of acres inside the city limits of Archer from being used at all.
We don't have hundreds of acres inside the city of Archer.
There's a few hundred acres.
I do want to just provide some brief clarification to make sure we're all on the same page on 2 points. One, this does not prohibit people from using their industrial properties in the way that they've already been permitted and allowed to use them. This just stops future applications for additional development on industrial.
Correct.
So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with that. And then the second thing that I just want to clarify has completely slipped my mind now that I've made that first point. But I'm positive it will come back to me at some point. So I will let you all know.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I just, one of my biggest problems with this is that time limit, that 1 year. I could understand if the city commission was actively working on improving something for our city, but I don't see that. And I'm not sure I even have the confidence in them to do it if they were working on it. The other thing is, we have bigger problems to work on than this. And, you know, if they were working on it, maybe I could see maybe a 2-month or 6-week moratorium, but a whole year to me is ridiculous because, and I'm pretty sure after a year, you know, they'd want another year. I can't say that for sure, but, you know, I have to agree with you guys. So anything that we're going to do to stifle growth right now seems wrong. We're suffering with $1 million deficit that we can't pay, and that's what we need to be working on, not something like this, which personally I happen to agree with Ms. Green that it seems to be targeting somebody. And I don't think that should be our business, targeting any individuals. That's just my take on the matter. Don?
Yeah, the question is, I think the code needs to be looked at. I mean, if you look at it on any industrial property in the city of Archer, you can put a junkyard.
No, that's.
No, yes, if you look at the code, you could. So just that one point there would need to be updated. So how do you update these without a moratorium? Because if you don't put a moratorium, you get applications. That application goes with what's in place today.
Well, we've actually done this before, about 9 or 10 years ago. All business moved smoothly, properly, while we literally rewrote from beginning to end. We took almost 6 months of monthly meetings, 3-4 hour meetings to do such. I'm not saying it would take that again, but all I'm saying is it can be done, and I think that's how we should do it. We still have the means to protect the city, as Mr. Willis has pointed out. Now, there's a lot of things they can't do without going through us on the case-to-case basis.
And one other thing I want to address the city attorney about, the 1-year time limit, which you said that the Florida suggested that that's what it is. That's not set in stone, because the city of Archer has been known to put stuff off. And let's just say that 12 months comes around, oh, we haven't gotten around to it, we're just going to go ahead and extend it out another year. And that's why I don't want to deal with it. If there was an absolute definite plan, if there was a definite plan and a definite time limit, but granting this would just give them, it would basically be an indefinite. It wouldn't be 1 year, it would be indefinite.
So I do want to, I do want to address that. First, the point that I was going to make earlier, I want to say before I've forgotten it again, is that there's been some discussion about, okay, well, we can still sort of view things on a case-by-case basis. When I was talking a little bit earlier about what this moratorium entails, it's both permitted by right uses would be stopped, and then also conditional use would be stopped. So if you all recommend and then this moratorium were to go into place, it would, or rather, let me flip that. If it were not to go into place, it's not that you all would see every single thing. It would only be that you all see the things that obviously need conditional use permits. So there are some things that are permitted by right. If you don't put this into place, it doesn't mean that you're going to see every single thing that happens in industrial. It's very case by case in your code. So I just wanted to touch that. The second thing is that there's a reason why we have to have a plan in place. A lot of my office has sort of gone blue in the face with the commission over the last couple of months, talking about the fact that we can't put a moratorium in place until we have a plan on how to amend our land development code. We can't just say, okay, well, let's put a moratorium in place and then that's sort of it. And we'll figure it out later. There really has to be a plan under Florida law for us to be able to do that. And so to the point of this would be indefinite, if we get up on a year, if we get up on the end date and nothing's been done, we can't just say, okay, well, we're going to put into place another year. If we're right on the cusp and we're sort of close, we could potentially extend it. But there wouldn't be a justification, at least in my office's mind, for us to say, okay, well, we've done absolutely nothing to amend the LDC at the end of this 12-month period, but we're going to extend it anyway. I do not believe that would be in accordance with Florida law, and it wouldn't be our recommendation. So I just do want to clear that up.
Linda Kosicki, what is this? If this isn't the plan, what was this in our packet? That starts in 2 weeks and ends in October with workshops and meetings. I thought this was the plan.
I'm not sure what you're holding.
That's the plan Bill Lewandowski submitted. That, from what I understand, that was never a motion to adopt that plan by the commission.
Well, that's a plan.
That's a proposed plan by Mr. Lewandowski, yes.
So does everybody have access to that plan?
It's in your.
It's on the website, yes.
Well, this is more of a schedule than a plan. It's not an actual plan, it's just a schedule to actually have a whole bunch of meetings to make a plan. It's a schedule, it's not a
I
plan.
understand, and like Kirsten said, we don't have a planner yet.
Yeah,
Or so
yeah.
Flora's just gonna make changes, do the ads, the resolutions, all the amendments. They're not gonna actually make changes, so to speak. That would be a planner that we're still trying to get in place.
Correct. I just wanted to just say that this is a schedule, it's not an actual plan.
Right.
So just to clarify on that point, Florida law doesn't require that you know every single change that you're going to make. You don't have to have a plan for, we're going to change X, Y, and Z about our LDC. You just have to sort of have a sense of, we're going to change our LDC in this area, industrial or conditional use in industrial only or permitted use in industrial only. However you all word this moratorium, you just then need to have a sense of this is what we're going to look at and this is what we're going to work on changing, and this is sort of the timeline with which we anticipate getting it done.
Mr. Chairman, have you sat through the comprehensive plan update for the city of Archer at any point in time? This comprehensive plan was implemented by the state of Florida, I think back in the 1980s, and I'm not sure about that date. But then the cities were to adopt a comprehensive plan, and we did. And we spent weeks and weeks, and then when you spent weeks and weeks, that was an update. It has to be updated. So most of these business people know about that, and that brings me to another point. Mr. Willis, I certainly appreciate your comments tonight. He's the only businessman that we have on any board in the city of Archer. He's the only one that knows what a budget and a balance sheet, and if the payroll's not done, it's his fault. And I wish some of you business people would step up and run for the city commission, because we need some business people here that understand these things. But back to my question of the comprehensive plan, have you ever been through it?
Yes.
Okay. We definitely had land use regulations because Archer was chartered in 1878, and we had land rules back then that, you had an orderly city. But then when the comprehensive plan came along, and then this information that Mr. Lewandowski puts on Facebook is not accurate. The other thing that's not accurate is what we do at this meeting, the staff is supposed to take it to the city commission, and if they don't do it, it's not the fault of the planning commission. It's the fault of the staff, because they are to take to the city commission what is acted on here in the general conversation. And so these things that are coming across Facebook concern me, because he has a big following. So he said the city
Linda
commission can't even take the results to
One at a
Here's what he wrote.
One at a time, please. Red light.
He says the city commission can't even take the results of those hearings into account. They have to do the whole thing over again. And that isn't accurate.
Linda Kosicki, I take offense. I was a farmer for 12 years. I drove a rock truck for 3 years, and I had Casey's for 9 years. I do know what a business is.
This is Don Hinchy, and I also manage $1 million budgets for IBM. So I qualify as a business person.
Scott Dreyfus. We're not talking about not having or working on a plan. We're talking about a moratorium for the stuff that goes on, whether we're working on a plan or not. That seems to be the whole thing about a plan. Is no one's saying no plan. We're just saying, let us address these concerns as they come up. As Mr. Willis pointed out, we can meet every month. We could meet twice a month if we need to. I don't see the problem. I just see a problem with a moratorium of 1 year, 12 months. That's too much.
Well, it's just like kicking the can down the road. We'll just put it off and put it off.
That's exactly what you're doing.
Don Hinchy, if we don't put a moratorium in place, she's right, you're just kicking the can further down the road, which seems to be a habit for the city of Archer. And if you want to plan for the future, you need to get this updated. We have sewer system coming in, that's going to spur growth, and you better be prepared for growth. And I lived all over this country, and the one city I lived in that was anti-growth was Tucson, Arizona, and they didn't plan for it. And if you go look at the grid of Tucson, Arizona, it's fragmented into 3 different geographic areas because none of the roads line up, none of the facilities are right, because they didn't plan. This is our opportunity to plan for the future and make sure that Archer becomes what we want it to be.
Mr. Chairman, I can hear Scott Coons, the director of the Florida Regional Planning Council, when they implemented that council. And I can remember him saying, when you look at a city, you look at what you have. You look at what you have, and then you build from that. We're not going to pick up that facility over there, that heavy industrial facility, and move it to the other side of Holly Hills. It's not going to happen. And I think that's what we're aiming at. I think we're trying to take that away from this owner.
Linda Kosicki, you name one city, probably in the state, that has a heavy industrial unit in the center of its city. Who's going to want to live here? Who? You tell me who is going to want to live with heavy industrial in the middle of their city. There's light industrial, there's other things that happen that do not have to be heavy industrial.
Okay, this sounds like it's getting, like it's being addressed and it's being focused on, this was done for one individual. This is supposed to be to make our plan better. I think that giving a year is too much time. And sometimes whenever you want to get stuff done, if you've got an unlimited timeline or even a year timeline to do it, sometimes I see things being put off until it's necessary to be done. I'm not saying it's not necessary to be done, but if you have time to do it, sometimes you take all that time to do it. I would say not do the moratorium, because that lights a fire to get it done quicker and get it addressed sooner without having the luxury of time to debate and everything else. I mean, if you actually put your efforts to it now, knowing that we need to get it done first, instead of saying nobody can do anything until we get it done. Let's just, we'll work on it. We'll start working on it immediately instead of, we'll get to it when we get to it because we have time now.
What about amending it to a shorter time frame for the moratorium? Like 3 months, for example. That would definitely light a fire to get things done.
6 months is way more reasonable.
But even if it was amended, even if that was passed and amended, and that was done, just like the attorney already said, it could still be extended out if things were moving, but they hadn't gotten done yet. It would still, it could still stop everything indefinitely until it got done. Is that correct, Ms. City Attorney?
It's generally speaking, yes.
That's
Obviously
why,
fact specific, so
Yeah.
I can't ensure if
Yeah.
we're at X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z stage.
but that's why I do not want to vote to approve it, because technically it wouldn't give a specified time, it would give an indefinite amount of time. Because they could keep extending it out and out and out, instead of it being a cut set date. If we don't give them a date, if we don't give them that time, they have to continually work on it until it gets done.
This is a question for you, Kirsten. If we gave them a limited amount of time with a moratorium, could we stipulate that it could not be extended? And if they didn't finish the work, the moratorium was lifted at the end of that time frame?
You could make that recommendation, and if the city commission voted for that, the ordinance could say that is not subject to renewal under any circumstances. That could be an option that the city commission could vote on, absolutely.
But the people making the rules could change the rules at their discretion.
If the ordinance says it cannot be extended, then it would need to be passed by ordinance in order to extend it. So you would have to go through the same process if you wanted to extend it.
But they could send it back to us again saying, we need more time.
Yes.
So that we would be in a catch-22 of just being sent back and forth.
Yeah, and I do want to reiterate again, it can't be, under Florida law, it cannot be perpetual. You cannot have a perpetual moratorium. not legal. So the reason that we have timelines is because this is a realistic set of time based on recommendations from North Central Florida Regional Planning Council, is acting as your planning consultant right now, who says this is the reasonable amount of time that we recommend. We would be able to put together some changes and get those changes through to your LDC. So that's, yes, if you're really close to the end and you're right there and you just need a little bit more time, you can, under some circumstances, get that, but it can't just be a year and then another year and then another year and then another year.
So people who literally do this as their full-time profession, this is all they do, they live and breathe it every day, say that they need a year.
Yes, that was the recommendation from North Central Florida Regional Planning Council. Those are your planners.
Okay, well then, that tells me right now that our commission and us as a board, if that's their full-time job, there's no way we could do it in a year.
Well, let me clarify. They don't need a year to put together their recommendations. The year is for everything to go through the process. So for it to come to you all, for it to go to the city commission, for the changes to be made, et cetera, for the whole process and all the changes to be implemented, it would take a year. But that's, yes.
But if there's,
That's correct.
and if there's not a moratorium put in place, it would just make it to where people would have to act quicker. I mean, it would make it to where people couldn't put it off. I mean, it would basically be a race.
I'll tell you that I do not believe that it will take less time. From my experience, I have not seen this process take 3 months. It's just not a realistic time period. Even if there's no moratorium in place, foot on the gas all the way, I don't see it taking 3 months. I think 6 months is a stretch, and that's once we get our planning services moving. Alternatively, if we don't get our planning services moving quickly, then the city commission is going to need to start making those changes itself and making those recommendations. So that process can take a while. So if the question is, do I think, in my experience, it will be faster to make the changes without a moratorium? I don't, because this process does take a while.
I'm agreeing with everything. I'm agreeing with everything you're saying. I'm just glad that you, again, said what I was saying. If you have the time, I see most people tend to take it, and it's going to take a year either way. I don't see anything blowing up, and I'm not using the word blowing up, but I don't see the exponential growth happening in the next 6 or 8 months, but I see people thinking about it. I see a lot of people looking at Archer thinking, that might be a good place to bring my business. That might be a good place to open my store. Or it might be a good place to move. But if we put restrictions on industrial business today, because industrial business doesn't just happen overnight. It takes more than a year of planning in a lot of cases. But that would put them years behind, and that's why they wouldn't be able to. That's why we would just get passed on, and we would lose out on a lot of opportunity. And again, I'm still going to say I'm not going to vote to approve it. I just want to, for those reasons, I don't think there needs to be a moratorium. I think it gives leeway, and it doesn't make it as important unless we light the fire to where they can start addressing it. And I'm all for changing, making amendments and everything, but there doesn't need to be a moratorium for it.
Linda Kosicki. We can talk and we can make decisions and we can even vote, but it's not up to us. It's up to the commission.
We're going to make our recommendation, and they're going to vote the way they wanted to, or the way that they want to. I mean, this is a suggestive board, and we're sending our recommendations. And they're supposed to take what we say, but at the end of the day, they're going to do exactly what they want. I don't know if I say it or not, but I mean, I would like to hear public comment.
Yep.
But wait, we need to be finished here.
I want to hear public comment.
We all do. We finished? Okay, let's open it. Please state your name. Oh, please state your name and recognize a 5-minute time limit.
Sure. Todd Kirkland, business owner, citizen, business owner for 43 years. I think a lot of people have been led down a different path and don't know what they don't know. And one of those things is, there's a lot of things in place already. The state mandates about clean sites, clean air, clean water, procedure, a lot of things that people have questions about are already in place. You can't build a facility that pollutes Archer because the EPA is all over it, the state is all over it, the county's all over it, the Swanee Valley, every district around here already has things in place to protect the city. I have a prepared statement I'd like to read. Resources, right in here, there are 3 contractors and a construction attorney that could be happy to answer questions, and my wife also. As a business owner in Archer, I'm quite dismayed about the proposal that City of Archer would impose industrial moratorium, thus preventing and accepting and or processing any applications for industrial uses. This idea of a moratorium is not only wrong, but it smells of gross negligence. The City of Archer is broke, and they've got a history of not making good decisions, if any decisions at all. New industrial partners would bring commercial businesses, new homes, and much-needed services accompanied with the monies that will enhance Archer's fiscal future. This is about basic economics, to say the least. New industries will bring jobs, and higher wages all the way around, to include the little burger joint that has increased traffic, sales, fuel, more people stopping here in our city to buy groceries locally, ice, everything. Everything has increased from just a small growth. In addition to paying lost my place. Job training it's about basic economics, to say the least, but new industries will bring jobs, higher wages, job training partnered with Santa Fe, retirement plans, health insurance, paid vacations, and hopes for the future for families in Archer. In addition to industrial businesses pay higher utility rates, higher real estate taxes, and generate higher sales. And we will work as partners with Archer community. The Maddox Foundry was a partner of the City of Archer for 115 years, and nobody complained about it. Generations of families worked with Maddox Foundry for years and years, and there are still people surviving that worked in alliance with the city. The industrial partnership can happen again. Industrial partners with their jobs accelerate commercial development within the areas. Basic services are taken for granted in other small municipalities, while in contrast, Archer has none. Banks, drugstores, retail services, new full-service restaurants, car washes, dry cleaners, laundromats, auto parts stores, dentists, doctors, CPAs, all of these basic commercial service businesses provide jobs, pay more sales taxes, pay more real estate taxes, and higher utility rates. Industrial development will certainly bring construction of new homes to Archer. The question you have to ask yourself is, how many new homes have built and constructed in Archer for the last 20 years? Not many compared to our neighbors. New homes will mean a substantial increase in Archer's general fund through utility services, real estate taxes. In addition to these, homes will help pay for new infrastructure, sewer, water lines, water tower repairs, etc. Archer is a rural city that remains in turmoil. The state of turmoil has been due to the lack of ambition, preparation, and the ability to earn its own way. Archer is the only small town in Alachua, Levy, and Gilchrist counties that has endorsed the mantra, if we can't get a grant, we won't do it. It has to be free, because if we don't do it and invest in our future, look at all these small municipalities in the Tri-County area. They have all excelled and grown proportionately these last 25 years. Increased job bases, more retail, more commercial, more growing population, bigger city annual budgets, more infrastructure. New industrial partners will bring signs for new businesses and their needs. Archer needs a meaningful welcome sign in lieu of the one that is being proposed that says, "Go away, we're not interested," or "We'll put it off for a year." I ask each of you, not only as board members, but Archer residents, aren't you tired of Archer being on welfare? As I close, believe that the commissioners will not allow this moratorium in advance, and I'm hoping that you all take that into consideration about our needs for growth. The town is dying on a vine. If we don't grow, if it doesn't grow and keep up with the economy, it will die. And we're in that state right now where we're desperate for income and we're desperate for business. And I think everybody wants a safe, clean city. But yeah, I feel like the city is picking on one particular person. Thank you.
Thank you. State your name, please.
I will, thanks. Karen Fiore, citizen. I've heard it a couple times, you know, we have to stay up with the times. As we all age, as our city ages, we need to make sure that we're moving along in that same direction. And so I see that this moratorium would allow us to do that pause, to reset, to get what we as citizens and as Archer, what we want in our land development. So the goal of the moratorium is that it will result in land use ordinance to become stronger by requiring that the developers must provide objective proof that a proposed development will in fact have a positive economic impact. Currently, these claims during the conditional use process are weak and with no solid data to accompany the claims. So I ask that the board adopt this resolution or move this resolution forward to the commission as a sign that you're saying we want to help our Archer residents and attempting to protect us, the citizens' health and safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up.
Good evening. My name is Lee Kleinfelter. I do not live in the city of Archer. I live in the county. But I have been associated with the city for probably the last 40 years. I recently had the building next door at 409 West Main Street, and I had my zoning taken away from me. So I know what it's going to do. I'm going to read a letter. I am writing this letter in opposition to the proposed moratorium on industrial zone property. The industrial property owners have substantial investments in their parcels, not only in the real estate values, but also in surveys, insurance, and real estate taxes. Preventing these owners from using their properties for the purpose is unacceptable. If the city of Archer passes the moratorium, which is a weak disguise designed to stop growth, then the city should compensate these owners for the loss of use, loss of value. And since there is no reason for the moratorium, the city should be held liable to the landowners for the full value of their properties affected. I own property in Archer next to the city hall at 409 West Main Street. My property was zoned industrial until the city rezoned my land to commercial. This caused my property to lose substantial value, so I am aware of what might happen to values when the city interferes with somebody's property. The moratorium is wrong. The city of Archer, through bad decisions, mismanagement, and arrogance, now finds itself deeply in debt, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars owed to the federal government, banks, engineering firms, and others. And now the city is considering cutting off a substantial source of income. What is wrong with the picture? Perhaps the answer is in the folks advocating the moratorium are not in business and could care less about the success of Archer and its future. What kind of a Fugazi group is advocating this moratorium? I still live in the Archer area, and the decisions made in Archer still impact me. For over 30 years, I owned my business in Archer and provided a livelihood for my family. In closing, I ask again that the city of Archer not impose a moratorium on industrial zone land, and let me emphasize that a vibrant, healthy city needs a strong tax base to stay solvent. And finally, due to mismanagement, the city of Archer may soon no longer exist. The decision to restrict industrial zone property development should not be in their hands.
Thank you.
Thank
Next
you.
up.
I have a question for the attorney real quick. Can I interrupt right now?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Something he brought up, and something I was going to bring up later on, just before we voted. If a moratorium is put in place, and these industrial property owners, does that again open up another lawsuit to the city of Archer where they would be liable to pay them for the loss of use of their properties and the loss of being able to sell, or just the loss of value, just like he was saying he had industrial zoning taken away from his property? And is that a case where the city of Archer would be opened up to more lawsuits?
So the way that we are putting together the reason that we've gone through this process is because we're following what is required in order to not open ourselves up to lawsuits. So what the moratorium doesn't allow us to go in and say, okay, well, these are starting tomorrow, no longer industrial, they're going to be residential. I mean, that's not what the moratorium is for. It's for putting in different provisions regarding the use of industrial. And so the answer to your question is, we're going about it in a way that the answer to your question is no. I do not believe that this opens us up to any liability, and that's specifically why we're doing it in the way we're doing it.
Okay, so let's just say I was an industrial landowner in this town, and I had it listed for sale. My property is valued at X amount of dollars. For the next year, it would basically make my property, I would still have to pay taxes on it, wouldn't be able to utilize it, I wouldn't be able to develop it, and I wouldn't be able to sell it for what it's worth for at least a year because of the moratorium in place.
So I don't know that I would agree with that statement. You as a property owner would be allowed to use your property just exactly as it is right now. There would be no restriction on you being able to sell your property to someone else and then use it exactly as you're using it. The only restrictions would be on additional, if something needed an application, if you had to apply to the city in order to use your property in a different way than you've currently been using it, that would be what is targeted by this moratorium. And under Florida law, it is not my office's opinion that would be violative of property owners' rights.
I was just thinking about not actual industrial property that's actually in use. I'm talking about vacant industrial property. Would it be devalued for that year? If I had 5 acres on a corner that was zoned industrial and it was for sale, and it was for sale for whatever industrial property would be valued at, it would basically for the next year not be worth the money that it's worth, because nobody would actually be purchasing industrial property that could not be developed without knowing what they were buying.
So I certainly see the point. My response is that Florida law does allow you to put moratoriums, and it does not require that the city reimburse property owners simply because a moratorium is in place on their property. So that is, under Florida law, I believe that you're permitted to do this.
Okay, so it wouldn't open up the city to more lawsuits.
That is correct. The way that we're going about it right now is our opinion that it would not.
Okay, but it could.
I will say that anyone can sue over anything,
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that no one will sue. Our office's recommendation is because we're doing it the way that we're doing it, you would not be open to liability from any lawsuits.
Not open to liability, but it could damage the value of property, and it could damage the value of that property.
I'm not qualified to make an opinion on whether or not property values would be affected.
Okay.
Next citizen.
Thank you for hearing this. Happy New Year to everyone. I'm Ronnie Arnold. I am pretty much the target here. Everybody knows it in the audience here in front of me. It's all about Maddox Foundry. Let me remind you to go back several months. If you go back several months, Bill Landowski wanted to put a moratorium in. So he addressed the commission And he said, well, here's how we can do a moratorium. We can go ahead and go for a comprehensive plan. If we go ahead and apply for a comprehensive plan, then we can go ahead and do a moratorium, okay? So I call this the Bill Landowski moratorium. It's also the Bill Landowski comprehensive plan. Now, I didn't know Bill Landowski was a planner, but if you look on the sheets of his detail, he mentions the city manager, Deanna, who's doing a great job, I might say. He mentions the city planner, or city manager, and then he mentions a planner. Now, the planner, there is no planner right now, okay? There is no planner. The planner is going to have to be paid. And they got a quote from, and I don't know the person, but they got a quote for $150,000 for a planner. Now, where is the city going to get $150,000? We talked about the city being broke, and they are broke. But getting back to Bill Landowski's moratorium. Okay, what is the reason for a moratorium? The reason for a moratorium, as I see it, is to keep Ronnie Arnold from doing anything with his Maddox Foundry, or the other gentlemen that own, there's like four industrial properties that do total almost 200 acres. And what are they going to do about a moratorium if they want to develop their property or sell it to someone that wants to build their property? Well, this comprehensive plan, number one, there is no planner. So you should start off with a planner, number one, and you got to have the money. The city, it just doesn't have any money. The city owns 284,000 and going on unemployment taxes, so they are, the city is in a financial emergency. So this is something the governor is dealing with, and he's going to love this. He's going to love the fact that the city owes an unpaid engineering fees of over $450,000. Okay, he's going to love the fact that that the counting is so bad, they don't know what they owe. They don't have bank statements that are even brought up to date, so they don't even know how much money they have. They hired an outside accountant who, I don't know if he's a really accountant, but he has a limit of $5,000. And I think he's probably already run through his $5,000. And I don't have the list of all the recommendations that he has, but it's a long list of recommendations for the city and what he's tried to put together. They don't have their QuickBooks or whatever, they don't even have a bookkeeper, okay? You don't have a bookkeeper. You have an intern city manager who's doing a good job, as best she can do with not having money. I think she'll tell you they don't have any money. You're producing water. These are issues with the city that the city should be handling and not working on Bill Landowski's moratorium or his comprehensive plan that he doesn't have a planner for. The city is producing greater amount of water than they bill for. You should be making money on water, and they're losing money. They're wasting water. They've got a water line running across the Maddox Foundry all the way over across the church. So on my property, it's leaking water. It runs water all the time. I have gone to the city manager.
Mr. Chair, that's time.
Excuse me, please take 30 seconds to wrap it up.
Okay. They don't have the money. My question is real quick to the city manager. I talked to the North Florida Regional Planning lady today, Sandra, and I put the question to her real quick. Is it new construction, or is it in permits that are already in process that I have been in for months with the North Florida Regional Planning Commission, and they haven't got back? Have you contacted North Florida Regional Planning Commission and let them, have you held them up from processing my permit? That's one question. And am I right, is it new construction or is this moratorium going to affect my application that's been in the process for months?
Were you addressing the city manager or the city attorney?
The city attorney.
Okay.
Please take a seat and let her answer your questions.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, my office has taken no action to hold up anyone's applications, just to be very, very clear on the record. Second question, does this apply to existing applications or is it new applications? It depends on what you all put forward. You are permitted to have a moratorium that begins at the time that it was authorized, which I'm not sure what time when the application that's being requested or asked about was before or after we were told by the City Commission to move forward. Technically, the City Commission could have the moratorium start at the time that they asked us to move forward, or they could have it start at the time the ordinance is passed. So the answer is it depends.
I have another question. I don't know if I addressed it to the city manager or the city attorney, so I'll put it out there in both directions. Something that was just brought up. Question one, the moratorium and the planner, is the actual cost for that realistically a few $100,000 or more?
The answer is it depends. The city did get a quote for $150,000. That was from a private planner when we were first discussing this. We have, I believe today, the county was meeting on our request for assistance from their planners in putting this together. So the county could say that they'll assist us at no cost. Their planners will assist us with this process. They could say for a cost, who knows what amount. So it could be $0, it could be a couple $100,000. It really depends on the assistance that we can get from the county.
Okay, but as of now, we have a quote for $150,000 and a maybe from the county that they may charge us, they may not, or they might not help us at all.
The other thing so yes, I want to just asterisk the quote that I'm not positive that wasn't a review of our entire LDC and not just the industrial. I don't know which that was, so I don't want to tell you that would be what it is for industrial. I'm not sure.
Okay, and I guess this would go either way as well. If we did move forward with a moratorium, does Archer have a way of paying for it if there was a bill put in front of it?
No, currently we do not have $150,000.
Okay. All right.
Next citizen.
Bob Kosicki, citizen. Just a couple of things. Everybody here, certain people here, have looked at all this industrial property and says, well, the industrial people, they're going to lose money, whatever. The people in Archer, every citizen could lose money depending on the type of industry that gets put into those places. Some people don't care, but other people, it's like all you talk about is the industrial person that owns that property. I get it. They paid a lot of money. But every person in Archer paid something for their property. And that means just as much to them as that industrial property does to them. Do you get that? Do you understand that? Second, somebody came up here and talked about all these things that can happen with an industry, all the money and this, that, and the other. A lot of things they talked about would with all these houses being built, whatever. Until we get that sewer, there's a lot of things that can't be built. It just isn't gonna happen. They're not allowed without a sewer. That's why we have so little types of businesses, because you couldn't do it without more sewer. Because a septic tank, it takes a lot, even for a restaurant, as you know, what it takes for a septic tank. I know I had to put some in there. So it's not just that. I mean, they talk about all the people that the industry is going to bring in to work. Most times, that industries will not use the people in the cities themselves, especially here. They are not skilled laborers for some of the things that these industries need. Yes, you can use them for their everyday cleanup and doing some minor stuff, but there is not the skilled labor in this city for most industries. They have to bring people in to work their industry.
Thank you.
Lori Costello, citizen. You're right. We would be kicking the can down the road if we didn't pass this moratorium. We've been needing to do this for years, and we haven't done it. So please pass this moratorium.
Thank you. Next up.
My name is Rob Lash. I'm an attorney representing R.E. Arnold Construction. And I've listened to a lot of different communities suffer the same plight that you're going through right now. Dollar figures are always the most important thing, and when it comes time to figure out what you're going to do, how you're going to resolve these issues. We got to look at some issues too, like for instance, the moratorium. What is the purpose? Where did it come from? What started it? Where did it initiate? I think it initiated when someone knocked on the door, and that was R.E. Arnold Construction. At that point, everything was copacetic. There was no concern. There was no concern about whether or not that development was going to be produced or not. But you did have a carrot hanging out there, and you gave it to Ronnie Arnold. You said, come to Archer. We will let you build you what you're looking for. This is not something that was made up overnight. He presented the issue to several people, including the former manager, about what he intended to do with the property, how he intended to make it better. And consider, too, that R.E. Arnold Construction is a member of this community. He already lives here. He has a business that works here. It's been here for years. You know his reputation. You know what he's done. I think it's extremely important to remember that the intent of a moratorium is to stop progress. You mentioned the possibility of what's it do to the property values. You tell me that I've got a moratorium on a particular piece of property that I intended to come in and buy. Am I going to put my money on the risk that what I intended to do can be accepted at a later date? Absolutely not. 1 year, if you put the moratorium in place, guarantee you that not a soul is going to move on a piece of property that has a moratorium on it because they don't know what the outcome is going to be. Talking about kicking the can down the road. Then you kick it even further. Well, let's see, it doesn't pass. And suppose that you are right. You can move that point. You can move it 2 points down the road. You can move it a year. Maybe, possibly, maybe not. You got to pay attention to where you are right now. And right now, what you need to do is think about the future. Right now, the future's in front of you, and you've got an opportunity to do something with it, and that's not past this moratorium. Let the future progress. If you want to make changes, do it systematically. Don't stop everything that's going on right now because one person has knocked on the door and said, I really would like to do this. And several people say, we don't think we really want that. Several people say yes. But now you've got a situation that's going to impact you significantly, and there's going to be a dollar impact that this association cannot afford to do. So I would highly recommend that you do not pass this moratorium.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
We have a comprehensive plan, and we're supposed to update it every certain length of time. When is it supposed to be updated? We have a comprehensive plan. We keep talking about implementing a comprehensive plan. We've had one since the 1980s.
Yes, you're correct. I don't know the last date it was updated, I'd have to check the
Well,
records.
could you please check on that, because I think it was to have been done in 2021, but that needs to be looked at. But I don't think it's a $150,000 price tag on just updating the comprehensive plan, but I don't know that for sure.
Linda Kosicki, yes, we have a comprehensive plan, and the person that was in here was Charles Anthony Hammond, and if anybody knows who he was, we can guarantee that it wasn't for the benefit of the Archer people.
State your name and state your business.
Good evening, Bill Lewandowski, private citizen. Before I do my prepared comments, I would like to address this issue with the plan that was brought up. So the plan was something that I had submitted as a suggestion to the City Commission months and months ago. And it was to show an example of what it would take to make this happen. I did the research in the law, and as it happens, I am trained in project management. I use something called the critical path method to develop it, and I projected it would take between 6 to 9 months to get it through, and I padded that time a bit on the 9-month side to provide lots of extra time for citizen input. So that is the genesis of where that came from. So I just want to make that clear. The other thing I want to make clear before I do my comments is that I have been before this board and the City Commission since 2021 about issues with the land use ordinances. And if you, I think almost all of you, except for Don, were on the board, you've seen my face up here talking about issues and with the City Commission. So the problems with these land use ordinances are something that I have been trying to communicate to you guys for a very long time, not just starting with the last CUP. So I just want to make that really clear. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at the tapes, look at your own notes, it's there. Sean wasn't on that either, so I apologize, he wasn't part of that. So now my comments. I respectfully request that the Planning Commission support a moratorium on industrial development while our land use ordinances undergo revision, and that the moratorium be extended to include a processing of conditional use permits. Here is the reason for my request. The comprehensive plan is supposed to set the goals and objectives for land use planning in the city. Unfortunately, Archer did it backwards and passed the land use ordinances first, and then did the comprehensive plan, and the attorney can provide those dates. But that is a fact. And I objected to passing those ordinances when it was happening because we were in the process of doing the comprehensive plans, planning for it. We weren't doing it yet. We did it backwards. This created a major disconnect between community expectations and our current zoning, as evidenced by the many public comments regarding land use issues over the past year. Properly designed land use ordinances are the single most important tool in land use planning. They reflect the goals of the community and establish objective criteria for development. Industrial developments have a major long-term impact on a community, so it is important that the planning process be done correctly. Once an industrial development is established, it can be there for decades, or as an example of Maddox, for a century. They don't exist in isolation, as they potentially impact all aspects of a city's infrastructure and quality of life. We need to have carefully crafted ordinances that take this into account, and we currently don't have that. Our ordinances have problems, and I will address why. There's lots of technical issues in our ordinances. Just one example is when it comes to conditional use permits. There is no direct path from the Planning Commission to the City Commission. In other words, the Planning Commission is required to hold an expensive formal hearing, but the City Commission can't even take the results of those hearings into account. And Ann Green, that is a fact. You can talk to the attorney. Because it's true. They could not put into the record the result of what you guys discussed. And not only that, you didn't even pass the minutes. You just passed the minutes for that March meeting in October, I think it was, last time you met. So when you passed the minutes, we didn't have the minutes. No formal recommendation was sent forward to the City Commission. Now, in variances, that's there. That chain of events is there, it's clear. I was shocked. I didn't really realize it until we went through the CUP process, and I was going through with my attorney, looking at what was happening. It's like, it's this big hole. And it's one of those things, I guess, you just don't know until you go through a major effort. And that hole is definitely there. I invite you to look yourself, because it certainly was not allowed to be brought up at the City Commission meeting, hearing. At this point, we don't have a city manager who is also supposed to double as a planner. The city is over $1 million in debt, as was already brought out, and we owe something around $200,000 to our engineer consultants. So it's hard to see how the city can afford to carry out its responsibilities to assess and manage the approval process for industrial development, and that it is unlikely that this is going to be resolved anytime soon. The only reason that we can revise the ordinance is because of the included support from the Regional Planning Commission and what the County Commission has offered. So this is sort of the reverse of the argument you've heard before. It costs money to evaluate proposals. I don't think any of you up there can do can evaluate a report that talks about soil density. Maybe some of you can.
Excuse me, 30 seconds.
Okay. So that's a problem. So this is the reverse of that argument. You can't afford to do it correctly at this point in time. Personally, I am not opposed to industry, nor to anyone conducting business, but I am opposed to poor planning and poor process. As the saying goes, poor planning produces poor results. And by the way, I have been in business since 1989. Up until 2018, I worked my way up to become a senior vice president for international business development for several companies. Okay, since 2018, I've taken a step back and only work part-time. But I have been internationally involved in business, so I do understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Lewandowski, please come back. The very first point you made, if you go back to your notes, the very first point you made saying that the commission passed an ordinance and then we came back and did the planning. Can you go back to read that?
Yeah, so the attorney can provide the dates. I'm not going to try to spit the dates out to you, but what happened is that the city, as I recall, this is the course of events. This was happening during COVID, as you may recall, and the city was really pushing to try to get some large annexations in, most of the agricultural property. I mean, it was like 600, it was a huge amount of property. And they were really pushing, they were under a time constraint to make that happen.
Yeah.
At the same time, the city was sort of rewriting its ordinances. And also around the same time, the city was under its time constraint to start redoing its comprehensive plan, as Ms. Green brought out. That's something you have to do periodically. So rather than waiting until they did the comprehensive plan first, which is what's supposed to happen, you do the comprehensive plan, you do the visioning process, all that good stuff, you get the goals and objectives for the community, and then you write a plan to support that. Well, we did it backwards, and we did it deliberately backwards, and I think there's a time constraint. And even when I brought this up to the mayor when we first started talking about this, she sat up there where Mr. Dreyfus is sitting and said something to the effect of, I was more concerned about the citizenry and COVID, and we let some things go through. I mean, you can go back and listen to the tape, she said it. Okay, Don was there, he was at that same meeting, he heard it. So we did it backwards. The proper thing to do is to do that visioning statement and the comprehensive plan first, and then that comprehensive plan's done. But we need to now do the right thing, which is make sure that we line up the land use ordinances to the comprehensive plan. That has not happened yet. Did I answer your question, sir?
I'm more confused than I was. So you're saying that we approved a comprehensive plan without having a comprehensive plan?
No. We approved a comprehensive plan. What we did is we did some major revisions to the land use ordinances.
Okay.
All those use tables and stuff you see in your packet, that was all done 2021. They made some more revisions, I think, in 2022. But around 2021 is when they passed the major change. You guys went through this process. You sat here.
Yeah.
Mr. Dreyfus chaired it. After that was passed, then they started doing the visioning process, which is the precursor to doing a comprehensive plan. Okay? So we made major changes to our land use ordinance first, and then we went to the community and did the community visioning process and wrote a comprehensive plan. It's backwards. You're supposed to have the goals and objectives and all that good stuff and what the community is looking for, and then write the ordinance to implement that. That's the systematic approach to planning. And we did it backwards.
So what was approved?
Both were approved. The ordinances were done first, and then after the ordinances were done first, and they were all tied up, then they started the visioning process. Out of the visioning process came the comprehensive plan. It went to you and went to the city, and it was approved.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Next up. State your name, please.
Pamela Natil. I've been sitting here and I'm not understanding how we expect to get different results if we keep doing the same things. You're coming against the moratorium saying it's gonna cost us this, it's gonna cost us that. But the point was made that without a new sewer system, how much of this industrial use is gonna come to fruition anyway? Why not take the time to do it right? To take a look at it, to give us a chance to look at it, to make the right decisions without, because you're saying we'll just do it on a case-by-case basis. But isn't that how we got here? On a case-by-case basis? And then when that one case came and it just blew everything up, and now we're asking questions about it? And then, it's saying like, oh, this is against one person, this is against one person. But I do believe that the citizens spoke. And that is where a lot of that process got stopped and bogged down. Not because of the land use ordinances, but because the citizens of Archer spoke against certain things that came about. So all I'm saying is put your personal side aside, your allegiances, your alliances, whatever you're doing, and do what's best for the citizens of Archer. Thank you.
Thank you. State your name, please.
Good evening, Charles Tufano, citizen. I just wanted to clarify something with our attorney in that if we approve this moratorium, it only really, it applies to the overall picture and CUPs, but if the request is for a, something that's by right, it wouldn't hold that up, correct? If I understood you correct, it's not everything we're stopping, because if it's a by right use, it comes through, correct? Correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I have to give.
Oh, I'm not sure, I would have, yeah.
To look to
okay.
the chair first, because technically it's not supposed to be question and answer. So that's not correct.
That is not correct.
It's
I
all
misunderstood.
industrial applications for anything.
Okay.
That is correct. You could limit it if you wanted to.
Got it, thank you. Well, I'm asking this planning commission to vote to approve this moratorium for the reasons where our comprehensive plan and our city ordinances, zoning ordinances are not in alliance, they're in a conflict. And here are the reasons why. The comprehensive plan is supposed to set forth the goals and objectives for land use planning in the city. Unfortunately, Archer did this backwards and passed the current land use ordinance first, which Bill so rightly showed you guys. Industrial developments have major and long-term impacts, and I would like to address Mr. Willis in that you were saying didn't need the moratorium, but you could go on and continue to look at various requests for industrial use. However, once you approve that, and if you're still looking at your comprehensive plan, you can't go back and deny it. It's done. Once you approve it, it's done. You can't go back. That's the issue. That's why this is so important to do it now. And unfortunately, Mr. Arnold's he's stuck in the middle of it. But it's because of the planners and the city commissioners have failed to do their jobs. The ordinances, the zoning ordinances that were passed in 2021, just as Bill has indicated, were done backwards. There was no input from the citizens. And you folks are supposed to represent the citizens, not your personal endeavors, okay? So I agree. We do need some development here. I agree, we're in the hole, but that's because the city commissioners failed to do their jobs and the manager. That's not your fault, that's not our fault. We're in a hole, granted. Please vote to put this moratorium on and to review those conflicts with the comprehensive plan and the ordinances. Thank you. And, oh, by the way, I don't think anybody wants a heavy industrial zone in the middle of their town. True, the Maddox plant was there for many years, but for the last decade, it's been almost not working, right? There's no traffic, there was no truck traffic. And at the last commissioner meeting, Commissioner White mentioned issues with how our roads are being horribly beat up with all this heavy truck traffic that we have now. Just imagine what'll happen if we invite heavy industrial into our city. Because one of his points was that our own maintenance department could not repair these roads as someone had suggested. So I really appreciate you guys taking this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead and state your name and speak.
Good evening. Mark Meyer. I am the AVP of Marketing and Sales for the Florida Northern Railroad. Our railroad runs through Archer, as many of my railroads that are here in Florida run through a lot of municipalities. One of the things that we feel we're responsible for is, as a member of the community, because we are a business that runs through the community, is industrial development in a very responsible manner. One of the things that I've been working on for the past decade is industrial development here in the city of Archer. We have a property in town that we've taken through a process, and this takes years. I've done this in many communities where we have to go through the process of getting the site ready to market, to bring to potential users. We've now gotten to the point with the location here in Archer where we have support of many different companies. We have Duke Energy that has this past year taken the site in Archer and made it a Duke Select site. And it's on the verge of becoming a CSX Select site also, our Class 1 partner. That doesn't happen easily. They look at communities that they feel they can responsibly grow industry in. And we're not looking to just bring dirty industry in. We look to the community to give us guidelines for what they want in their communities. We're trying to find an industry that can help elevate Archer, that can create high-paying jobs, that can create the ability for the people of Archer to actually work in their own town rather than having to commute to Gainesville or Ocala. This has been a process that will be more than just set back. It'll be destroyed if this moratorium goes through. This type of thing hits the industry, the industrial development industry, and once they hear that there's a moratorium, all looking at the city of Archer will go away. They will no longer try to bring industry here. So this is very concerning. We do business from Newberry all the way down to Crystal River. This is my rural rail line. And I'm a country boy by heart and like to see responsible growth within the rural community. We're not trying to make this Orlando or Tampa. We're trying to see success in this type of rural community. So the proposed moratorium on industrial properties poses a significant risk to the city of Archer's economic vitality and to the relationship between the city and the companies that are investing in this community. My railroad urges the zoning board to carefully weigh these considerations and work towards a solution that will allow sustainable growth and prosperity for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, any further discussion? Oh, I'm sorry. Please step up, state your name, and begin.
Good evening, my name is Melvin Lauderdale. I need to get my glasses out, sorry about that. We're talking about a moratorium, and I've done a little bit of research on moratoriums in the state of Florida, and one of the things that's really interesting is there are moratoriums in Florida, but they're for cause. You know, C-A-U-S-E. Not just pull something out of the sky. And you know, the causes can be for environmental, infrastructure, protect sensitive areas, but that's what it is. That's a cause. You know, a moratorium is just a suspension of activity, or a period of delay. The problem is that the moratorium that's being proposed has no cause. An example of what's happened in the past in other towns that have passed moratoriums, for example, Edgewater passed a moratorium because they were being flooded. That was the cause. And the reason they were being flooded because they had too much construction for apartments and houses. So what they did is they put no new construction in apartments so they could figure out what to do with the water. Dundee, they had a moratorium. The problem is they didn't have enough potable water. They were using 800,000 gallons a day and they only produced 917,000 gallons a day. So they put a moratorium so they can increase the construction to get more water. Again, cause. Cape Coral, this is even better. Cape Coral, the cause was everybody had an eyesore. And the eyesore was there were too many car washes and too many storage units side by side on main thoroughfares. Well, that got sued, and so they came up with a compromise and said, you can have them, but they have to be at least 500 feet apart. But that was a compromise. But the cause was it was a sore eye. Naples had a moratorium. The reason for it, there was flooding. And so what they did is they had a moratorium for no new housing developments until they could figure out what to do with the water. Brooksville, they had a moratorium because their sewer capacity wasn't great enough because they had overwhelming growth. So they put a moratorium there so they could increase the size of their sewer system. Volusia County, they proposed a moratorium against all industrial development because the developers were going to build a fuel station, and it was taken before the Planning and Zoning Board. The Planning and Zoning Board passed it, but when it got to the commission, they looked at and said, we're giving up hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of real estate taxes. We're going to give away 75 to 100 jobs. And so they refused to install the moratorium. May I ask Deanna a question?
Yeah.
How many emails have you gotten in support of the not having the moratorium?
I believe 8, and then there was letters dropped off, and Mr. Arnold actually gave me a packet as well of
Okay.
letters.
Is it just 8? 8?
8, and then 3 more businesses sent in letters, so
Okay.
11, and then there's even more, but they've all been forwarded to the city attorney, the commission, and the planning
Okay.
and zoning members.
It was, as it was mentioned, moratoriums are bad for real estate. There's a reduction in real estate investments because everybody's scared of what's going to happen next. Investors are hesitant to put their money into someplace because there's so much uncertainty. The moratorium also produces an unstable business environment. Again, investors, banks, they want to make sure they can get a return on their money. You also have job loss due to the lack of construction and the development in the real estate sectors and the commercial sectors. And with that, you have reduced economic growth throughout the construction because of the construction. Trickle down economics, if you have an industry, they pay taxes, they have sales taxes, they pay employees, the employees go home, they buy groceries, they buy cars, they pay their real estate taxes, they buy houses, they stay in apartments. So all the money is still working itself into the community.
Excuse me, take another 30 seconds and finish up, please.
Okay. Thank you very much. So what I would say is, please defeat this motion because there is no cause to have a moratorium in Florida, in Archer, Florida. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, state your name, please, and then your business.
Lisette Conte, I'm a resident. Hello. I'm here to ask you, please do the right thing and think of the residents here, people who actually live here. And if we're talking about a cause for the moratorium, well, I would say that we need time. The residents here need time to give their input. We need time. We need the time. Why not take the time that we need? 12 months, a year, it's, where has everyone else been? I mean, all these years. It's like suddenly 12 months is going to stop progress in Archer. We need to give people the right time. We're talking about state government, local government. We're not going to get anything done in 3 months. You just can't. So why not give people the time that it's needed to do the things that need to be done and then move on? Then all the businesses that have been held back for that period of time can come back and, do what needs to be done. So please do the right thing. Please vote yes on this recommendation for a moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, anyone else? All right, let's turn it back over to the board.
Just as a reminder, the motion on the floor is to not recommend the moratorium.
Yes. All right, no further, you have something?
Just one other thing to go back to something I said earlier. It would do us no good to even approve it anyways because Archer has no way of paying for it. I mean, the city manager has already said that we do not have any money to hire a city planner.
That's true, but however, like Kirsten said, we've asked the county for a planner, and yes, there could be a fee charged against that, but it could also be at no charge.
Yeah.
So it is an unknown, you are correct.
Yeah, maybe, but as it is right now, Archer can't afford it. I mean, they have a maybe from the county, but not an actual affirmation that's saying, yes, we will. They just said, maybe we will, maybe we won't.
Linda Kosicki, we can't afford anything right now. But if we don't plow forward with getting something accomplished here, we're going to regret it. We're going to regret it in the long run.
I do not believe that the funding concern is in this packet for this meeting. Whether the city can afford something or not is not part of approving this or not approving this.
All right, I will now call for the question. Remember, an aye vote means no moratorium. Okay, all those in favor of the motion to reject resolution number PZ LPA M 24-01 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Yes.
Yes.
I oppose.
I oppose.
Right, it is 3-2 in favor of rejecting the moratorium. Thank you to everyone who participated. We'll wrap this meeting up in a couple of minutes. Okay. Can I help you?
No, just a reminder, we still have public comment before we adjourn. So just as a reminder to everyone, if as you leave, you'll please, excuse me, sorry everyone, if I can just have your attention for 5 seconds. The meeting is still occurring, so if you're going to have conversations, I do ask that you step out. There's still public comment. Thank you very much.
Now, do we have any public comment on any issues other than?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Hello, Gosky citizen. So, just general comments. I'm concerned that so many of you commissioners, except for Ann Green, is usually at the meetings, and so are Don, but you just don't seem to know what's going on with the city at the city commission meetings. I mean, a lot of the stuff that was being discussed was brought up at the city commission meetings, like, the issues with the pay, who's going to pay for the planner, where is that coming from, all those types of things. That was all discussed. I believe the chair, please correct me if I'm wrong, you said something to the effect of that junkyards are not permitted in the industrial areas. In fact, they are. If you look at the chart, not only are they permitted in the industrial, they're also permitted in the light areas. So if the developers wanted to plant nothing but junkyards in all the industrial areas, there's nothing that stops them except for the permitting process that they have to do, as an example. So I'm trying not to be mean here, but I'm not convinced that all of you guys have really sat down and read the ordinances and the land use tables.
Okay,
based on
thank
what
you,
I'm hearing.
but this is a time for other issues other than the moratorium.
Well, this is an issue. This is a general comment in terms, I'm not talking about the moratorium. Moratorium is done. You made your comments, it's going to the city commission, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay? My
5
general,
minutes.
I'll be done in a minute. My general concern is, as I sit here and listen to the audience and listen what's going on, I'm not convinced that you guys are completely up to speed on the ordinance, as I sit here and listen to your comments. Nor am I convinced that you are really up to speed on the comprehensive plan. When it was passed, what the details are, you just don't seem to have it, at least in my opinion. I'm not trying to be mean. Please take it as constructive feedback. Thank you.
Thank you.
And one thing, just to address with that, us voting not to approve it is not stopping it.
Sure.
All it's doing is just not giving you a time limit. You can work on it as fast or slow as you want.
Go ahead.
Lori Costello, citizen. I have to agree with what Bill said. I think either you need to do that as part of your meeting or individually, look at the comprehensive plan and all of the ordinance that go along with that and everything that might come up at a planning and zoning board. Because sitting back here, I've heard a lot of stuff that I'm just like, hearing stuff that planning and zoning boards should know. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I want to say something.
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
I haven't been convinced yet that we don't have a comprehensive plan. They're saying we don't have a comprehensive plan, and we've looked at it. We do.
We do. We each got a copy of it. It's in a little a binder, a nice white big fat binder.
And my other concern is if what we've done here tonight means nothing to the city commission, then we shouldn't have a planning board. It's been said that what we do doesn't go to the city commission, they have to start over. Is that the way it's supposed to be? I don't think so.
I don't think he meant it the way it came out, but yes, they're gonna ask, and I'll put that in my little sheet, that the planning and zoning board approved it 3-2, and, you know, sometimes North Central Florida will write up a thing, you know, on it, and I haven't got that last few meetings, he is correct on that. I don't personally do that, I just pass it on to the city commission, so I can ask Sandra if they can start resuming that. But yes, we do have a comp plan.
But that's the way
Miss
it
Ann.
goes to the city commission, is that
Yes.
only if staff takes it. It's not that they can't take it, it's just that it hasn't been done.
Right, well, it
And
hasn't been done,
so-
like, I think some of the commissioners are here and or listening, or both, you know, back there, and on, so they're well aware, they have all the emails that have been coming through.
So I don't know where Mr. Lewandowski's coming from on that. I don't
He's right
understand it at
here.
all. But I'm the one who says I don't understand
I'm sorry?
anyway.
May I make a clarification? A clarification.
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So just to be clear, my comment was only in that regard, was only regards to conditional use permits, okay? Only in the case of conditional use permits. There is a hole in the ordinance in which there's no direct route, in which the deliberations and the evidence provided by the planning commission is then allowed to be directly considered by the city commission when it holds its quasi-judicial hearing. So that's the only thing, that's the sole area I'm speaking about when I'm speaking about this disconnect. In variances, there's a direct route. I mean, you can see it, it says, you'll do this, the planning commission does this to the city commission. So that's direct. Anything that happens here, there's supposed to be a letter signed by the chair, those results go up, and that's a done deal. The other minor disconnect would be is that your minutes are not approved until your next meeting. So the official recommendation, you know, I mean, if somebody's listening to the meeting or something, they know what you said, they know what was discussed, but it could be months before they get the official notice of the minutes of what happened. That's a process issue that has to be addressed. But my comment in regards to the disconnect was only in regards to conditional use permits, period, that's it. And that's where the hole is.
Mr. Chair, it wouldn't matter what issue we took up at this planning board meeting, the city commission should be apprised of it. That's my comment.
Okay, thank you.
He said not conditional. The
Well,
other thing,
I think he's not saying they're not aware of it. In the ordinance, there's a hole in the ordinance where what we decide or recommend can't be used by the commission for special use permit. In the hole in our ordinance itself.
It's a little bit more complicated than that, and I'm happy to go into it. I don't have the information in front of me right now, but essentially it's just not explicitly written out. In some places it's explicitly written out, these will be the findings, these will be sent in exactly this form to the city commission. In the CUP area is not written out like that, so it's not that sort of rote process, if that makes sense to everyone. Doesn't mean that they don't know, they will know that you said yes or no. It's just the process of what exactly is transferred to them on what piece of paper and how that's used is different. So yes.
so am I hearing that unless it's written on paper, they can't use it? I mean, staff can't let them know?
Oh, yeah, myself or Kirsten or anybody can get up at a meeting or from the dais and state, you know, comments you guys made, or you're welcome to come up as well. Yes.
No, I think
Yes.
staff is supposed to apprise them of what went on. The other thing, Mr. Chair, is we have a mother and a daughter serving on this, at this meeting, and I think that that's against our rules for the city, and I think that needs to be looked into. We have a mother and a daughter.
That is perfectly permissible. Thank you.
When my husband was on the city commission, it was best that I didn't serve on a board. That's where I'm coming from. But we have that all through the city. We have a lot of family.
I don't vote.
Yeah, she's not on the board, she's fulfilling another position. Yeah.
Make a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second that.
Been moved and seconded that we adjourn, and all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned. It is now 7:47.